You've all been briefed on the mission by Colonel Makepeace. You know the enemy. You know the risks. What I'm trying to say is I would rather not order you to do this. So I would like all of those willing to attempt the rescue of SG-1 to take one step. Very well. SG units 3, 5, 6, and 11, bring them home.
Hey guys, what's going on? It is I, Mike the Birdman, and that's right, I'm in charge of Stargate Command today. Man, did somebody screw up large, but I am here, yes, with yet another fantastic RPG-focused interview, and as you've guessed from this year on TWIG, we've done a lot of RPG interviews. We've talked from people from the West End game Star Wars thing, that was Bill Slavisek. We've talked with Aaron Paulier from Modifius, who designed starships for Star Trek Adventures. And we've talked to people from Judge Dredd, from Alien, all sorts of awesome licensed properties. And today, we're going to continue that tradition, but I'm actually not alone. I'm joined by my co-host, the guy who is my Tok'ra, the guy who guides me to the stars, the guy who manages to get me home each and every mission.
Alex, the producer, and this is an interview on a property that I actually know.
Yeah, like this is really cool because you and I started watching Stargate a couple of years ago, and then I just got super busy with life, and I left off just as the replicators were coming, and I'm like, wow, they're like the Borg, but not, and they're evil little machines. And then you started telling me about everything that happens with the Goa'uld and all the bad guys. And as I was reading the rules that I was provided by today's interviewee, I was like, wow, now I'm starting to understand all these things. And if you remember, years ago, me and Alex played in a game of Terrible Warriors, where our friend Darla was the game master, and we called it the Shield of Mars. And it really got me interested again in Stargate. So when me and Alex take our break this December after the holiday gift guide comes out, maybe I just might marathon a bunch of seasons of Stargate, and I'm just going to live there because I do love me some MacGyver. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome to the show Brad Ellis. He is the CEO over at Wyvern Gaming, and he is one of the brains, basically the Stargate command in charge of the Stargate SG-1 role-playing game that is currently running on Kickstarter with about 20 days to go as of this recording. On Thursday, October 8th, it is currently sitting at $116,969 Canadian, and they have reached a bunch of their stretch goals. We're going to talk about some of the things that might be coming up. We're going to get some teases, hopefully. And without any further ado, let's welcome Brad to the show.
Hey, how's it going? Glad to be here.
Yeah, this is really exciting. I totally didn't expect you guys to email me back within like 15 minutes when I sent your Kickstarter the message. This is something that me and Alex have been looking forward to for a number of years. We've always wondered, why hasn't there been a new Stargate role-playing game? Because there was the old one based upon the Spycraft engine that came out in like the early 2000s when the series was really popping. So I guess, Brad, why don't you tell us the genesis of this particular version of the Stargate role-playing game?
Sure. So my company, we've been doing some board games in the past, and we are me and my friends, basically, who are kind of the co-founders of the company. A guy named Phil Lawyer, who is our game designer. He really wanted to do a role-playing game. So he was like, we were doing a lot of Cthulhu stuff at the time, because you know it has an open gaming license. I mean, not open. It's a public domain, right? So we thinking, okay, what can we use for a license to do a role-playing game with? And the first thing that came to, like, it almost looked, we like looked at each other and said at the same time, Stargate. It's a perfect game for going through the gate. So every adventure can be completely different, right? So just think about, you sit down at a table and you just go through the gate, and what's on the other side can be anything, right? It can be could be old Western, it can be sci-fi, it can be, robots, it could be whatever you want. And it just makes a lot of sense that it's a perfect thing to do a tabletop gaming session on.
So when you guys decided to take on this particular license, how familiar were you with the older one that was based upon the Spycraft engine? Kind of previous to this. Basically, what did you guys want to take from that older system, maybe bring into yours, or what did you want to create that was wholly original? Because I know there's some different mechanical things you guys are doing. Like there's a really interesting system I like called the tension dice and the determination point system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so obviously the first thing we did right after we looked at each other and said Stargate, we said, "Is there one out there?" And so we started looking and we started looking at the book that existed, and we're a big D&D background team, so we've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for quite a long time. We played really 3.5 is where we really started doing the things with Living Greyhawk, if you guys remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really liked the mechanics of a D20 system. So when we started looking at what was in the previous version, we were thinking, this we know it's hard to do a modern sci-fi in a D20, but I think we're up for the challenge. So we really took our time and made sure to take the best things from different systems. It is a D20 at its base. It's based on the 5th edition open gaming license. But we looked at all kinds of games all over the place and tried to piece together what makes a good modern sci-fi. And I think that what we came up with is a really good mashup, if you will.
So with this new edition of the game, you're allowing players to have this set in the SG-1 universe, but you're setting it at a very specific place in the series timeline, which Alex, if you want to explain that to me a little bit, it takes place during the 6th season, correct?
Let me see here. I wasn't familiar. So you said it's taking place in the 6th season? That would be... Okay, so it's before some of the other major story arcs are introduced. That's a good spot to put it.
Yeah, we picked that spot in particular on purpose.
It's before O'Neill sort of steps a bit to the side to let the other characters shine more.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
It's right when they moved over to the Sci-Fi Channel and they were really hitting their stride, and the System Lords were still apart. Yeah, it's actually smack dab in the middle is actually a really good spot to put it, honestly.
Yeah, so Apophis has just died for the last time, we think, right?
Spoiler, Mike.
Oh.
Oh. But also it's at a point where it's before the spin-offs were really coming to. Like, this is before Atlantis,
Mm-hmm.
because it aired, Michael, the first 3 seasons of Atlantis were airing concurrently.
Oh.
And they would have they had episodes that would happen, sometimes 2-parters between the shows.
Mm-hmm.
So this is right when it was at peak popularity too. So
yep. Yeah, we picked this time very specifically for a couple of reasons, and where it is in the timeline is definitely one of those things. Is there's Anubis is coming to power. He's the new threat, if you will. And you're right, it's right before Atlantis, because Atlantis starts basically at the end of season 7. So we're hoping, obviously for expansions and things like that. And that's obviously a good place to go after this.
Interesting. So with the base game as it is right now, what are some of the playable races and what are some of the classes that people can look forward to playing in this game? Because you guys do something interesting that I like, is you are named level for the first 5 levels. After that, you can do pretty much whatever you want. You guys even do experience a little bit kind of differently too.
Yeah. So that was one of the mechanics that we brought in is a classless type system. We wanted to give the freedom to, because if you think about, you know, the characters in Stargate, you know, Daniel Jackson, he started out as you know, kind of the sciencey engineer type guy, right? And or more of the sciencey guy, and then he's never really picked up a gun. But as the series goes on, he becomes much better and more efficient at actually handling himself in those situations. So it's very much like kind of cross training into other classes. So we have 6 classes. We have the diplomat, the engineer, the medic, the scientist, the scout, and the soldier. And you choose that at first level, and you go through up to level 5, at which point you start using your experience, or we call them mission points, to spend on feats that you can spend in any of the other classes areas, basically. And there's a whole chapter on feats that you can choose from that can build on each other. And as you spend your experience, you then gain levels in that way as well.
Now, what are some of the playable races that we'll be able to take part in as part of Stargate Phoenix?
So we've got, that was one of the things that the earlier book had. It was, you basically could just play a human, and that's because it was based off of out of Tauri, or Earth, right? So we wanted to add a little bit more variety, and so we added, one of the reasons why it's based out of this facility called the Phoenix site is, and I guess I'll give a little bit of the backstory there, is this takes place season 6 around episode 9, Alliances, uh, and it's the time when the Tok'ra and the Jaffa are at the Alpha site, and the site gets infiltrated by an Ashrak, which is stabbing each of the other sides, and they're blaming each other, and they're getting into a big fight. Um, anyway, they end the day, they solve the problem, and they find out that it is actually an Ashrak, and they take care of the problem. But what happens is basically the site becomes compromised. So here's where our story picks up, is that at that time, the U.S. government decided that they wanted to create a new site, because there were freedom fighters all over the galaxy that were rising up against the Goa'uld threat, and they wanted to all work together. So they wanted to create a coalition of forces, but they knew that they couldn't bring all these people back to Earth out of Stargate Command. So they created a new facility called the Phoenix site, and it's an off-world site that's under the control of Stargate Command, basically, but it is a coalition of forces of Jaffa, Tok'ra, Unas, and an additional race that we added to the game called Aturan.
Wow. So there is a whole chunk of variety that you can create your own kind of makeups, and not all these races are necessarily combat beasts. There was one of the races that you mentioned there. I'm pretty sure they can't do damage to anybody, but they're amazing diplomats. Which I thought was actually kind of nice, because in most role-playing games, let's face it, everybody decides, I'm just going to beast mode this and roll d20s until everything dies.
Right.
I like how this particular character race kind of forces you to think outside the box, and kind of naturally goes towards diplomats, medics, or scientists. Kind of forces you to be a squad of SG soldiers or SG team members that has to work together, kind of like we see on the television series. So one of the things I'd love for you to talk about here, Brad, is one of the differences that your system has done, and I think this is really interesting, is something called the tension dice. Can you explain that for me?
Sure. So the tension dice is a setting, basically, if you will, that the Gate Master, which is what we're calling the Game Master, basically, sets at the beginning of the adventure. And he tells his players, okay, he says, this adventure is a D6 adventure. And what that means is that the tension die is between a D4 and a D12. So a D4 is more of a comical, lighthearted type of episode. And a D12, it would be like a season finale. So the range in between is what you have your D6, your D8, D12, or D10, D12, right? So um, the so the tension die can be used in the adventure as it goes, and it's used as part of the NPCs. So the non-player characters, the combatants, may use the tension die as part of either addition to their damage, or some diplomat that you're trying to convince may use the tension die against you as part of the diplomatic relations that you're trying to do. So it's a way of basically leveling or setting the mood for a particular episode, and letting the players know what to basically expect, and what kind of the danger that they're going to be in.
And there's another system that I saw, and that was the determination point system. And I've seen similar systems use like poker chips. I saw there's a version, or at least this makes me think of the Star Trek Adventures game, where you can wager momentum and stuff like that. Can you explain that system as well?
Sure. So I need to back up a little bit and explain that we have a ton of like different encounters, types of encounters, and we divide them into two groups. We have plot encounters and we have action encounters. And for example, one of the plot encounters is a convince encounter. And when you do that, it might be so an example, you might be trying to get inside of a facility, and you need to convince the guard to let you through. So at a convince encounter, your determination points is your pool of basically your willpower, if you will, and they're based off of your character build, and you get a certain number of them at the beginning of the episode, and you spend them throughout the episode in order to basically push your luck or push your will onto others, if you will. So in a convince encounter, you start out by having you wager at the beginning, and then you declare how you're going to try to convince the particular person, and based on that player or the NPC's disposition, they could be more logically based. They could be more, passionately based, and that's something that the GM sets. And then you do some rolls, and you may or may not win that particular thing. But if you do, you get your chips back. If not, you lose them. And once you run out of chips, your determination points, which we represent as part of basically poker chips, you are basically lost your will to go forward in that convince.
Okay, so this game has been in development for quite some time. You've had this thing in beta testing for quite some time. There's been I think thousands of people kind of playing this. I think there's actually isn't there like an open play podcast for this thing too? Isn't there?
There very well maybe. We've we've had the website up, the StargateTheRPG.com, up for quite a while. We were actually ready to completely launch this thing back in February.
Oh wow!
And then as we know, the world stopped, and so we did too at the moment. And so it's been in public playtest since February. So it's been actually been really good for the game, because we've been able to accumulate a ton of feedback and really fine tuned a lot of stuff. So it's only made the game better, and it's really awesome. We have a huge, great community on Stargate the RPG and on our Discord channel that has really been helping us. It's been a fantastic experience working with the fans and the gamers alike, because it's been an interesting mashup, to be honest, because there's a lot of Stargate fans, sci-fi fans, right? Stargate sci-fi fans, and there's a lot of gamers. And then, of course, there's some overlap. The overlap's pretty big, but there's folks out there that are just sci-fi and are just gamers that don't know about each other. And getting those people in the same room has been really fun and interesting to get their feedback on.
What has been the most surprising bit of feedback that you've gotten from playtesters and other people from the RPG community?
Um, Surprising. Let me think. I'm not sure exactly.
Okay, allow me to phrase this in a different way. Alex,
Yes,
you're
please.
still fairly a new player to role playing games. You've only played a couple with me that are based upon D&D. We've done Call of Cthulhu. What is something you want to see from this role playing game that you maybe want to experience, you as a player? What do you think this game's going to give you?
Well, what the show is so diverse in that it's always had a bit of a lighthearted tone, but it also uh, can be serious and has a very Star Trek feel to the exploration and the revealing and understanding. But I've also been a huge fan of the parody episodes. So hearing about the tension die and how setting it down to 1d4 makes it like maybe episode 100 or episode 200, like Wormhole Extreme or something. I like the idea that you can set it up so that you could have an episode, and the book is set up in such a way that it's designed right to be scenes or episodes and seasons, right? So that you could have your regular play sessions and with your friends, and you set it to a certain tension level, and then once in a while you can be like, all right, today's our 10th session, so this is our episode 100, and just set yourself up to have a ridiculous play session where you're playing golf through the Stargate or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Our Game Master Gate Master chapter is really unique, I think, because we have basically set the ground rules about how to basically create your own TV series. Our lead designer, Mac Martin, who's been wonderful. He's worked on some Star Wars properties. He's worked on Malifaux and things like that. He put together this awesome idea of basically giving the advice to Gate Masters to create a season of episodes that have scenes, and the whole thing around how we basically make a modern sci-fi work. Because let's face it, if you get shot with a gun, it's not good. You die, but not in a TV drama, not in a TV sci-fi show, right? You get shot, you may hurt a little bit, but you're going to be coming back the next episode. So it's along those lines, and that the Gate Master chapter in the book gives a lot of advice on how to deal with those situations, and how to basically help the players along with the idea that you're playing in a TV show.
Now, one thing that I did notice, I was just actually rereading the Kickstarter as we're doing this interview. Tell me a little bit more about the living campaign, because I've only seen Star Trek do that. I'm curious to know what you guys are going to do.
Sure. So, in the same vein that I was just talking about, we are so at home. You can certainly create your own campaign or season, if you will, where or series, because a series would be a season, a whole set of seasons. You can homebrew your thing at home and create your own seasons and produce those things, and have the same players come back week after week. Or what we're doing also is we're creating this living series where these are going to be episodes that we are producing ourselves, and they are going to be over a season of 13 episodes. The first set of them were released at Gen Con, this past Gen Con at 2020. And basically what it is you can create a character that plays in those episodes, and at the end of the play, the Gate Master will do an after action report, and that will go into our system at stargatetherepg.com. And after a period of time, after the episode has been released, we'll take all the results of all the games that have been played of that particular episode, and basically decide based on the majority what really happened. So what actually happened as part of that episode, and then future episodes are then based off of that. So in that way, we can continue the story, and the players are actually molding what's going on.
That's going to be something that's going to be a lot of fun, just because, as we've mentioned during this, the Stargate universe opens up so many possibilities for players, and to have the entirety of the run to kind of play with, that's really rather exciting. So one of the things I did want to ask you, I know you guys are not done yet doing your Kickstarter. That doesn't stop until Thursday, October 29th. What are some of the other things that you guys plan to do? Because in the version of the rules I'm looking at, I don't see any of the characters from the show. Are there plans to include any of the major characters, or this will be a separate entity so far?
Yeah, because it's basically the setting is at the Phoenix site, so it's an off-world facility. We're not including where you're not there to play Jack O'Neill. You're creating your own character that's part of another Stargate team that is going through missions. Now you're playing in the same sandbox, if you will. So the whole stories of what's going on with Jack O'Neill and SG-1 is happening. So your team can go on missions that can maybe support them. Or maybe there's something that happens off screen in this SG-1 story that your team is actually going and investigating. And we think that really allows you to, as a Geekmaster, you could tell your people before you go run an episode at the table. You say, hey, go watch episode so and so because it's going to be important for our adventure.
Okay.
And I think that really will get people into get their juices flowing and get the excitement going. Oh yeah, this is great. I know exactly what's going on, because a lot of times, if you're sitting down with an adventure, the gate master or the game master has a story in his head that he thinks is just fantastic, right? And trying to convey that out to the players sometimes is a challenge for some people. So having it in a setting that everyone is familiar with, what the story is, what's basically going to happen, but you don't know what your team's going to run into. So I think that's a really fun and unique way to play a role-playing game.
Okay, so this question I'm going to throw to Alex. Okay, so based upon everything you've heard so far, who's going to run this thing, me or you? Because I gotta admit, Brad's kind of got me hyped.
This may be the first RPG book that I read cover to cover with the same enthusiasm you do for all RPGs. So this may be something, Mike, that you do a session, I do a session.
That'd be really cool.
I do a session.
And I think this game kind of lends itself to that because it's such an open world. You don't necessarily need to it can be the same characters, but different adventures played through different eyes. And I think that's going to be something that we can experience.
And that can really be like, maybe one of us does the more serious stuff and one of us does more of the goofy, the wacky, the comedy stylings.
Yeah, like I really think we're going to have a lot of fun with this. So I guess, Brad, as we begin to wind things down here, what are some things that people could potentially look forward to as stretch goals? Because I know you guys are beating them, like, not even kidding, almost several times a day. Like, I'm getting emails from Kickstarter, like, a new stretch goal has been reached. Like, since I backed this thing, out of this recording, I backed this thing yesterday. I've gotten 6 emails. Explain to me, sir, what are you doing with my money? Because it sounds awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got a lot of really cool things planned. As we get more and more pledges, we're able to basically do more. So we really need the support of you guys to help everybody, because the more we unlock, the more goodies are available to everybody. So the things that we've unlocked so far, we have a Phoenix site patch. So this is something it'll be a physical patch that you can put on if you want to role play as your favorite Phoenix site character. You could role play there. We had new content that was unlocked that we added to the book. We have a Gate Master screen which is the thing that you can roll dice behind as a Geekmaster, and it's got nice art on one side, and on the other side it's got things that are kind of key things that you might need to remember as a Geekmaster. A really cool one that just unlocked just very recently is we have a digital online character sheet. So you'll now be able to go once we develop it, you'll be able to go to StargateTheRPG.com and build your character from scratch. So you'll be able to choose your races and choose your class and choose your attributes and etc. to build that thing out. And if you're playing in the living series, you'll be able to, as you play episodes, you'll get those mission points and be able to apply them to your character so that you can level up your character as you go.
That's fantastic. I mean, like I said, you guys are doing so much, and I'm really happy to see you guys embracing digital character sheets. I'm hoping you guys will do integration with Roll20 and other digital services as time moves forward. And fun fact, while this interview was happening, you've gotten $15 more of my money, sir, because I wanted that like Game Master screen real bad.
I was going to say, before you interjected, Mike, I was like, oh, I saw that the GM screen's up, and you're a GM screen guy. You've got like 10 or 12 different ones.
Easily. I'm thinking, yep, that's mine now. So yeah, this is something we are tremendously looking forward to. So for those people that maybe want to find out more, Brad, where would they have to go?
So the easiest place to go is StargateTheRPG.com. And on the front page, there is a link straight to the Kickstarter. It's also kind of the hub and where you can go into forums and things like that. You can download some of the iconic character sheets, and we actually still have our beta test rules are still available on the site, so you can get a really good sneak preview of what's to come. Again, that's StargateTheRPG.com.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right, guys, that was our interview with Brad Ellis of Wyvern Gaming. Please check out this Kickstarter. Clearly, it's got my money. Alex is going to throw some money at it too. Actually, sneak preview for those of you listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net. So I have been actively recruiting people to my own Stargate program, and maybe in 2021, maybe we'll lock in the chevrons and we'll go someplace weird and strange. The possibilities are definitely cooking. I have one or two people already interested so far, and I'm really looking forward to this. So now Alex can now say, guess what, Mike, you're watching Stargate. Yep, no shit. So this is going to be a lot of fun. And Alex, obviously, big thanks to you, dude, for getting me back into this series. In fact, thank you for posting about this on Discord the other day, because
I know I had been keeping my eye on it, and then it popped up, and I went, oh, it's live. and I wanted to just, stir the pot and see who was interested. And I knew it would catch your eye.
Yeah, like this is going to be fun. The fact that it's based upon D&D 5th edition rules, which is what everybody's playing now. That's fantastic. And I was actually talking to Brad off air for just a moment. Technically, this is compatible with other 5th edition things. So if I wanted to have my Stargate team fight the Tarrasque, I could, in theory, do that. It's gonna suck, but
maybe start with the core rules first.
Yeah, before we start hacking it. But either way, this is going to be tremendously fun. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of ThisWeekInGeek.net. Be sure to keep it locked for more great geek content. Me and Alex will be talking to James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd, next week as we talk about Universal monster movies. I will also be doing stuff with Nerds of the Third Power for a bunch of different shows for the month of October and beyond. Should be exciting. And also, don't forget our new site launch is coming up in just a few weeks. Stay tuned for that. So until next time, we are about to use the dial home device. We have been
Alex, the producer.
And I've been Mike, the Birdman, saying,
I wouldn't mind one last jaunt through the old orifice. What? We call it that sometimes.
Well, that's our show. All right, here's the deal. Every time you watch my show, I will send you $40.
Checks will not be honored.
You've been listening to This Week in Geek, your source for guaranteed nonsense or your money back. Tune in next week for more info on the most important things you didn't need to know. Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net and subscribe to our podcast through iTunes or any podcatcher. If you'd like to comment on this episode, head over to this episode's post at ThisWeekInGeek.net and leave a comment through Facebook Connect. Follow us on Twitter at ThisWeekInGeek.net and follow our Instagram at twig_official_podcast. Social media not your thing? Send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. We'll see you next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens.
What?
It ends.
I have to go. Somewhere there is a crime happening.